For my historic nonfiction unit, I chose 5 books based off the Civil Rights Movement. These books range from grades 3rd through 6th. For my first book, I chose The Rise and the Fall of the Jim Crow Laws. This book occurred after the Civil Rights Movement, but it includes all the events that led up to the Civil Rights Movement. These events include the War for the Union, the 13th Amendment, the Black Codes, and the Reconstruction. This book outlines these events through the chapters and shows how it affects both races, and how with the Jim Crow laws it shows that African Americans, even though received equality through the civil rights movements, were still treated unequal after. Some of the censorship in this book is the word or the use of the word Negro. For my next book, I chose Journey to Freedom, which is a biography of Coretta Scott King. She was Martin Luther King Jr.'s wife, but in this book it shows her family and herself and the hardships they faced as she grew up. Mainly it shows the struggles with her and her education. This book is good for children to read because they will be able to compare their education today to the education shown in the book from back then. Coretta and Martin were very proactive in the civil rights movement when they were trying to help African Americans obtain equality. It also shows the importance of Rosa Parks as her fight to achieve equality as well. So this book not only includes Coretta, but it also includes the importance of many other historical figures. For my third book, I chose The Story of Ruby Bridges, which was a 6-year-old, and she was the first African American girl to attend an all-white elementary school. Her story is very sad because it shows her walking to school every day through many crowds of white people who are just yelling at her and waving signs of hatred towards her. But her optimism and her praying for these people to finally accept her for herself and to allow her to go to their school is amazing because it is a true story, and it also shows the kids that people weren't accepted for how they looked back then, and kids today don't think twice when playing with a friend if they're of a different race. Some of the censorship in this book could be the moments of where she's praying or the inclusion of God. For my fourth book, I chose The Watsons Go to Birmingham. This book is told through the perspective of a young boy named Kenny. So this book is about him and his family. And the way it relates to children is that the author used many situations in schools, such as school bullying, to show the relationship between the segregation. The bullying infers the violence and the severity of the white people and how they treated African Americans. These specific events were included. Some were actually real historic events, such as the bombing of the Baptist Church in 1963. This was included towards the end of the book and had Kenny's younger sister involved, and it showed how it affected him as a child and him and his family as a whole. And it also showed how the city reacted and how the African Americans feared the white man and how they were being treated so unequally. Some of the censorship in this book would be the bullying within the schools. Some of it's a little violent for children. The language used between the children and the description of the injuries caused from the bombing. For my last book, I used a biography of James Meredith and the school desegregation. Meredith was the first African American to apply to the University of Mississippi. He wanted to go there so badly and he felt he could apply, but the white people were not happy with this at all. Many protests occurred, even they were fighting against him and trying to make many excuses as to keep him out of the school. Meredith's determination to get in shows the students how much you have to fight for something if you want it that badly. It also shows that even as the civil rights movement went on, education still did not get better for African Americans. It includes pictures and descriptions of real-life events to show the severity and the times of the African Americans in that era. The censorship in this book is a little more crucial for kids because it has the word nigger in it, and the use of this word is not for kids, especially if they don't understand the use of it and the meaning. This word is very vulgar to describe the African Americans, and so that's why it should be aimed more towards an older age group. These 5 books summarize the civil rights movement both historically and literally, so the children are able to relate to it much more than just reading it out of a history book. These events are able to show children the differences and the struggles people had to go through to make their lives today so easy. And these books are able to help children appreciate the hardships that people had to go through for them to achieve that. And thank you for allowing me to criticize these books and to give you options of how to teach your children about the civil rights movement.